right. So this time we're going to select the Y-Wing for the first time and go to the mall. I've got with me Holger Schmidt, who's the lead programmer and lead everything on Rogue Leader, and Chen again, who's the level designer on the mall. So maybe start out, because we haven't talked too much about the GameCube in general. Since you're the lead programmer, you've got quite a bit to do, aside from Thomas, as the technical guy, with the hardware. So how did GameCube influence the Rogue Leader progression and the project in general?
It's a good thing that it's so easy to program, but it's a bad thing that you don't have that much time to program it. I'd rather have to spend more time programming it because it's such fun to actually work on the machine.
That's for the sequel.
Watch it on tape.
Yeah. But in general, I mean, what's maybe in comparison to the N64 and maybe a little bit PlayStation 2, because you programmed both, and before that many other machines. But what's the big difference compared to PlayStation and N64?
Well, PlayStation and N64 were about the same. Technically, it was the transition from 2D to 3D. So you had to fight both on the gameplay side with the new concept of making games in 3D, and on the technical side you had to fight too, because it did draw polygons, but not a lot. So you couldn't achieve visually what you already achieved in 2D on the 16-bit machines, and you couldn't achieve that visually on the 32-bit machines. With GameCube, it's a step kind of like if you did the step from the NES machine or the Game Boy up to the Super Nintendo. That's the same step from Nintendo 64 or PlayStation up to the GameCube. So we finally are able to not worry too much about the technical side, and you can concentrate a little bit on the gameplay.
Okay, so specifically about the maw, maybe a little bit. Al, the maw is the first Y-Wing level. So what's special about it? Why Y-Wing?
Well, I mean, basically, there's a lot of firsts in this level. I mean, we're talking about the first true mission featuring Wedge as the player character. We're also talking about flying the Y-Wing, which is a bomber. It also has the ion cannons, and the player gets to use these new weapons for the first time. So we kind of designed this mission to kind of showcase these new weapons and capabilities. For instance, the tankers are just ripe for the bombing, and these shield projector things, the only way you can get at them is by charging up your ion cannons. So we basically integrate the teaching of these weapons into gameplay, so it's kind of transparent. It's not like your standard tutorial thing like press button here and then do this. It's very, very natural, very intuitive.
That's at least what we're hoping for. All right, second part of the level. This is mostly a bombing mission. So, right, the AT-PTs. Where do the AT-PTs come from? The AT-PTs are non-classic Star Wars, right?
Yeah, I think they might be mentioned either in novels, the Rogue Squadron novels, or the comic books, I believe.
Yeah, and they were in the first game.
They were, of course, in the original Rogue Squadron.
Yeah.
And they're quite handy in this very jagged, very dangerous terrain here. And they're fun to blow up. They're kind of cute. The whole idea with this second part of the level was we wanted to really guide the player around the level and turn it into almost like a railed experience without confining him to a rail. That's why we created this pretty elaborate train rail system, so that the player won't really get lost on this level. All he has to do is just find the rails and follow it, and it'll take him to lots of targets of opportunity, lots of stuff to blow up.
How about difficulty progression? Because one of the big criticisms was against the original Rogue Squadron was definitely its difficulty curve and learning curve. So did you guys consciously try to break out of that mold, or is it just a luck thing?
It depends on the level designer, but at least for this level, I tried to kind of ramp the difficulty up slowly. For instance, in the second sub-level, we have just a simple blow up a couple of turrets, and then the prisoners on the train starts moving. The second location where the weapons are stored, it ramps up. The guns are a little more aggressive, and then on the third section. you get the AT-PTs and TIE fighters chasing you, it starts ramping up and gets more interesting that way. And then by the time you actually get to your destination, you get a full-on firefight going on. So it was a conscious decision to kind of ramp things up here.
Maybe as an interesting question, what's the difference comparing this to a typical PC game?
Well, your typical PC game is a lot more complex in terms of mission objectives. Also, just your control scheme is a lot more complicated. Definitely, usually they're more semi, so you have a lot of different gadgets and displays that the player has to keep track of. Whereas on something like the shooter on a console title, usually try to be as simple as possible without being just dumbed down. So you can just jump in there and you can immediately fly and have fun. But then the trick here for us, the level designers, is to provide enough depth after players learn the game to provide a little extra so that the more experienced players can enjoy the game as well as the novice.
We've got with us Mario Wagner. Mario is our art director here at Factor 5, and in this case, while Portopoulos was the lead artist, Mario still worked on the project and did quite a few things, and his kind of labor of love was the maw and all of the structures on the maw. So I don't know, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about what went into it visually.
I guess we mainly try to achieve a very, I wouldn't say industrial look, but trying to appear quite technical as far as all structures go. We used a lot of chroma keying to really...
Which is what?
which basically means it's a form of alpha texture. It's a 1-bit alpha
which basically
texture.
Means you've got a transparency in the thing, so
Exactly,
you can see
yeah.
through it, right?
So it's basically black and white to spare out things, to create holes. It's cheap and it doesn't cause any problems as far as layering goes. You can just put chroma key in front of the chroma key, which gives structures a very fine and detailed appearance. And I guess, what we went for were basically everything is on stills, like let's say oil drilling stations.
Yeah, the main base idea I think was oil drilling platforms out in the sea,
rigs,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. What's different working for a platform like GameCube compared to N64 or PlayStation before? Since you worked on all.
I would say you've got more opportunities this time around, and I don't know, like things like texture resolution and all the multiple shaders, which we come to later. Yeah, you can go pretty wild, but you have to keep track of memory.
Yeah. So you would say the biggest problem this generation around for artists is memory?
It's still memory. I think it's memory, and it's also it's a detail level which takes now much more time. All the art assets, just as far as detail and models goes, the overall amount of textures, which were like in the past, we had textures. The biggest one was maybe 128 by 128 on the N64, and now all of a sudden, I don't know, it's like up to 5 times as big.
Almost 10 times.
Almost 10 times big, like 1024 by 1024.